Welcome to Roll the Dice, where we have our next episode of All Things Gaming, talking about world building today. This is Keith, this is JK, this is the other Keith, no relation, and I'm Dave. So let's talk about world building.
Let's define it first.
All right. Keith, you want to define it?
Boy.
Throw you the tough one.
Yeah, I think you're probably better off defining what isn't world building, maybe.
Well, if we were to set it on a line, we've got world building down to the finest point where you just create a dungeon or something and you're running around in it. And you were mentioning earlier that, okay, so you got elves and dwarves and orcs and other things like that in the dungeon. So you've obviously done some world building, right?
Yeah.
Thinking of the world outside the dungeon, at least as far as races and monsters.
I guess in most general terms, world building is the environment that the player characters inhabit.
Right. And how big and elaborate that gets, you know, on the end of that spectrum, on the other side, we have a project that we've been working on with a friend of ours, JK, who has created an entire world over the last, 30 years? That you put into it. It's incredibly rich with politics and history and trade routes and crops and, you know, everything else. Calamar is kind of the same way. I mean, they have an atlas that talks about crops, wind trends, weather trends, and trade routes. It's crazy how detailed you can get.
That would be the other end of the spectrum.
That would be the other end of the spectrum.
The far other end, yeah.
Right.
And so most people who are game mastering don't need to go to that extent.
No.
Right.
No.
Usually you have, like in D&D, you might have modules.
Mm-hmm.
The modules defined for you basically the environment that you're working in and the interactions.
Might have some towns, or it might just be a dungeon. It might, who knows?
Now, I argue that even in that situation where everything is pretty well defined, to bring the world to life as a game master, you still have to have an idea of how it fits into the larger world. You know, maybe the characters interact with a merchant. Well, where's the merchant from? What is he bringing? What is the sort of trade in the area? You don't have to go into great detail about it. You just have to have a little bit of a snippet of an idea.
Right. And to be able to make it up and have it be consistent, I think would be important too.
And then other game systems have a whole world already laid out for you. Numenera, for instance.
Yeah, Faerun for D&D.
Dragonlance has Kryn and all that. And if you read the books, you get a really good idea of all of the characteristics of that world. Right?
Which is what you're doing. You built the world and are building books that you're authoring out of it.
So like here's the map of Irakara, which is about the size of North America in scale, right? And then this area over here, we're detailing on the whiteboard here, and that'll turn into its own map too, right?
Right.
But so there's the Kryn and Dragonlance and
the Irakara
and all that. But yeah, you don't normally have to go to that length.
No, but a lot of them do. They go to the length of at least, say, Barm here, where we've got several cities are outlined and whatnot. Well, sometimes they define that map, and then they define the cities, and you have another map where you're zooming in down on some more of the finer points.
So let's say that, none of the published worlds really appeal to you.
Sure.
Where do you start? Where do you start making your own?
Oh, boy. You start with a question, I think. What's next? What's out there? Where did I come from?
What
right?
scale?
What scale
are you talking about?
Yeah.
And if you're running a campaign, you only really usually need just a region or a
yeah.
city.
Yeah. I mean, we're bringing a product to market in the next year and a half or 2 years, where we are creating the adventure, start to finish. That's going to be moving between 4 different kingdoms. Barm is one of them. So we're defining those different regions that the game is going to play in. But in addition to that, what's going to come out of it is a more defined world, and that's going to come out as a world book supplement for the adventure, or vice versa.
But if you're a game master and you're making your own region, right? So first you define the area that you're interested in, and does it meet the criteria for the campaign you're making?
Sure.
Right.
As a player, what do you think? What do you want to see when you're running or when you're playing in a campaign? Do you care if there's a wider world out there?
Depends on where you want to go as a party. I mean, it depends on what the end goal is, if you're fighting Lich or if you are trying to maintain a city. It's just dependent on what you are trying to do for the campaign.
For the campaign.
That's kind of the first thing I want to know if I'm starting a new game. What is my role in that game? What do the player characters do?
And that level of buy-in is something the GM has to think about on a couple of levels. One, how much of this do I need to know? How much of this do I want to know?
Right.
And how much are my players expecting me to know? Mm-hmm. How much do they want to know out of it? And that relationship really drives how much you concentrate on those books. I've read a lot of world books. I don't remember a whole lot of any of them. I focused on the areas that I was going to be monkeying in, and that was about it.
That's all you really need to know at the moment, right?
Sure. But some people, especially if there are books about this out, regular fantasy novels or sci-fi novels that define an area, then people want to get that game, that world book, they want to find out more, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, with Firefly, I wanted to know what they were all saying and swearing at each other, right? So I went straight to the book. First thing I looked for was translations. Mm-hmm.
So like the city of Tolis, right? The map behind you, right? That's by Monty Cook Games. That one has a huge area. It's very defined, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of
880 pages of content.
And yet, as a GM, you still have to make up things to go into it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's just one city.
That's just one city. Granted, that's a huge city.
Yeah.
200,000 people. It's got dungeons and dungeons underneath it and dungeons on the surface and temples and places. Yeah, it's huge. And there's no way I can remember it all. Right?
Well, no.
So if I were a game master and I were developing a campaign to run a few characters, mm-hmm. and I didn't want to build a giant world or a whole city, I'd probably want to think of some basics, right? Where are they going? Let's say it's a dungeon.
Yeah.
Maybe it's outside a small town, so I might want to design the town.
Right.
At least in a basic form.
Right.
I might want to know, what the issues are that the characters might run into.
Sure.
If they're starting in a tavern or whatever, maybe there's some gods here, a couple mm-hmm. of gods that they might have to deal with clerics from, mm-hmm. or the clerics in the party, right?
Right.
So you have to have a sort of idea of the Parthenon of gods in the mm-hmm. area. I think of, what is this city sort of, or region sort of designed? Is it more Asian? Is it medieval European, as most of them seem to be?
Right.
Is it a modern day setting? Right.
And some of that will be dictated by the system you've decided to use, right?
Right.
Like D&D it doesn't have a defined world in the basic books, right?
No,
but it has an implied world.
Well, and it does have deities.
It has deities. It has races
mm-hmm.
That you can play. It has other monsters that inhabit that world. So it has an implied world.
Right. And those gods, looking at the pantheon itself, those gods are used in some of those other world settings, mm-hmm. right? Because it's meant to be a plug and play kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas in others, they have whole new gods. So they have to do a whole new level of world building for that.
Now, one thing we've kind of been assuming is that the GM does all this work.
Right.
Right? What about cooperative world building? Say like the Dresden Files yep. or mini Fate systems.
Sure.
Do a cooperative world building.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea because if the GM makes it all, it might be cool and fantastic. You might love it. You might suck, right? But you're only going to be getting one perspective on that world. One. Well, the world is built up of many people. So having many people at the table contributing to the world building is going to give you that I don't know. It creates a different ambiance for the world, right? It creates a richness, a depth to it.
I think you get maybe a certain level of automatic buy-in also.
Yeah, I think so. How about you? Do you like elaborate worlds, or do you care, or do you like just something small and defined so I can operate and away we go?
It again depends on what is being ran by the GM, what kind of game is being ran. So if it's worldwide, you're traveling the entire continent to just try and find a certain piece of treasure. Mm-hmm. We're going to need broad strokes for a lot of that.
Oh, sure.
But if it's based in one small city, we're all trying to defend it from Lich King or some kind of thing like that.
Right.
you want that to be more defined. So I guess it just depends on what kind of game is being played.
Sure.
Right,
Sure.
and maybe even if it takes place in one city, maybe some outside politics with other cities,
Right.
that sort of thing, that might come into play. But in general, most of the characters I've played anyway have a pretty narrow view of the world at any one point in time.
And I've seen a couple. I mean, out of the hundreds of game books that you and I have, right? I've seen
Too many.
worlds that were never too many. I've seen worlds that you could tell there's the functional part that you're going to be operating in, and then whoever was working that out, or the adventure, the world book, whatever, went out and explored all this other stuff, but he didn't do it very well, right? So it's stuff that you're never going to use, right? It has really no applicable need for this. It was just created because the creator wanted to.
Right, and then there's a lot where they also leave it open for you to kind of put your own spin on it. Maybe they give, kind of hints and
That's what Numenera does a lot.
And little, anecdotes about different parts of the world, but largely leaves it up to you.
Sure.
To flush out.
Yep, and that's kind of what Monty Cook Games has done a lot with their Cypher system and with Numenera. Numenera is this huge world map, and there's tons of things populated on it. Maybe 10% of it's actually spoken about in the books.
Right.
Right? They leave it open. Here's something to kickstart an idea for you. Or here's something that can take place over in this part of the world if you want to play with it. But it's wholly undefined. So
one thing I've run into is, let's say you're running an open campaign. Players are free to go wherever they want, to do whatever they want. You're making a big world for them to accomplish this. There's a pretty good chance they're not going to go to
where
that dungeon you developed,
Yep.
or that town that you defined, or
That's why you just cut and paste.
or interact with that god that you thought they would.
Yeah, that's it. You want them to go to town C, they decide to go to town B. All of a sudden, town C is now town B.
Yep. What comes the problem is I don't want to go to town. We got a druid, we got a couple rangers, we got a nature cleric of some sort. It's like, we don't want to go to town. We want to go over here. What are these caves? Are there caves around here? Let's go look. And that does happen.
Well, in that case, I think that might fall into an entirely different topic in that, like, knowing your party.
Sure, yeah. Knowing your players.
Well, knowing your players, but also knowing the characters that they've made.
Yeah.
What kind of adventures are they going to want? What kind of adventures will they be interested in?
Well, and playing off that particular topic, knowing the players, knowing the characters that they're going to be playing. I recently did this with some of my professional clients, right? They really wanted an in-depth picture of what their characters were like and where they came from. So I spent with one client almost an hour and a half, 2 hours of unpaid time just sitting there mulling over the history of this guy. She even had mapped out what she's going to do when she retires from gaming.
What?
Yeah, she wants to open up a restaurant with her grandfather.
The character?
Yeah, the character. So, I mean, we went in depth in the background. We went in depth in what's going to happen in the future. So, you got to adapt it, but that causes you, the GM, to create stuff on the fly. You got to, even if there are ideas in the world book, you got to marry those ideas to whatever ideas the players have about their characters.
They don't want to go to the city, now they want to go to the forest. Oh, now you got to design the dark forest.
That's right.
The temple in it and whatever.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So there are a lot of trees.
Yes.
Thick,
Tall.
Maybe some bushes.
But definitely.
I think a deer or two. Throw that in there.
Sure.
So I
birds.
guess,
Lots of birds.
Oh, we could throw in fairies. Now we got to come up with a whole fairy idea. The whole fey world that's going on through there.
So what does it make it easier for the GM then? Having it built for you, or you making it yourself?
Well, making it yourself is more intimate, and you know it better. I can ask questions about any part of Irakara, and he knows it. I mean, he's got it right off the top of his head. He doesn't have to look at notes or anything. That's that level of intimacy that you have when you create something, like an artist creating a sculpture or a painting. They know every nuance.
You have a lot more freedom, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because everything you come up with is canon.
Yeah.
Years ago, I was running a Dragonlance campaign, and the players had read all the Dragonlance books.
Oh boy,
that's pressure, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to get it right for that world that was built for you, and if you get the details wrong, the players are going to know it.
Yep.
And
right now, Critical Role is absolutely huge, right? Critical Role is known by everybody in the gaming industry. They're making cartoons on Amazon now.
Mm-hmm.
It's insanely popular, and their big campaign is coming out on March 15th. And I had a couple of people who are clients who said, we want you to run the Call of the Netherdeep on the 18th. So
of this month?
No, of March, right?
Okay.
So the game comes out March 15th.
Oh.
And they want me to start running the campaign on March 18th.
You have 3 days to learn it all.
3 days to learn at least a good chunk of the first part of it, right?
Start them slow.
Oh, yeah. But I need to go learn the world of Wildemort, whatever. I can't remember the name of it.
Okay.
Wildemort. So I got to learn the world that they've got that posed in. And supposedly there are multiple entries to the Netherdeep depending on what country you go to, which means there's another book that I got to read. So now there's 2 books that I've got to get and read in order to understand the world behind what's happening in the Netherdeep so that I can enrich that adventure even more.
No stress.
No stress. No tension at all.
You know, and that might be a completely different topic, is running worlds of known properties or known intellectual properties.
Because all of them, like Amy, I wish we could have had her input on this one. They really have high expectations of this. She was talking to me the other day. You're getting paid to run this. You better know this shit, right? Backwards and forwards, really. You got to bring it to that. And if I don't, then they're just going to wander off and go to another DM for their gaming, right? Especially when they're paying for a service. So
yeah, that brings a completely different angle to it, doesn't it?
It does. There's a whole next level of pressure on the DMs to perform, right? Now I'm the monkey with the clangers and the cup out in front of it and wearing a fez, right?
And
organ grinder
and
hurdy-gurdy.
By the way, there are resources on the web to help you develop your own world.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
There are some pages that will automatically generate for you an entire world or an island or whatever, and give it names. And naming is a whole other thing, right? What sort of names do you want for your region? Do you want it to sound medieval, European?
What emotional connection do you want to make?
There have been books and books written on world building as well. So there's plenty of resources to help you, but that's
time.
That's it. You can put as much time as you want into building a world.
Yep.
I guess the hard part is determining how much of that do you need.
Need or want. Yeah. One of those 2 things are going to drive you, right? You may love it and dive all in, right? You are 100% into this and you're going for it. Or you may learn just enough. Like on Critical Role. In 3 days, there's no way I'm going to have a mastery of that entire dungeon. There's just no way. It's too big. So I'm going to have to pick and choose what it is I'm going to focus on for those first few sessions.
Right. But you won't need mastery of the entire dungeon in the beginning.
Nope. No, but I need a broader sense of the world.
Yes.
So
yes,
I'm
you will need.
Yeah, I'm not out of the hot water yet.
No.
And I'm late on the Critical Role bandwagon here. So my players have high expectations.
Start running those videos while you're asleep.
Exactly. Yep.
So if you go online just to Google and you type in random world generator,
right, you'll find a dozen of them.
Or random medieval name generator. Or something. Yeah, that's a great source. And of course, there are sites also that have maps already generated for you that you can. Some of them you have to pay for. Some of them are free. And if you know someone who's been GMing for a long time, they probably have stuff that they can give you too. So,
The adventure you guys are going through right now, I kind of wanted to throw something a little bit more elaborate at you than another woodland encounter. So I went to a website called Donjon, and I printed up an entire labyrinth of stuff. It's got all the monsters, it's got all the everything in it. Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of help out there that wasn't there 20 or 30 years ago. Not even 10 years ago.
Yeah, not even.
Although I'm the creative sort, I like making my own maps.
Oh,
I
sure.
like making my own world.
Sure.
Getting a whiteboard or a piece of paper and just sort of drawing some rivers on it and then, drawing a map.
But even then, there's some handy tools for you.
Yep.
There's some map making software where you completely do it from scratch. It doesn't, there's.
It's what he
if
did.
You don't want it, there's nothing automated.
Yeah, he made this one in Photoshop.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, crazy. Crazy complicated, crazy in depth, awesome amount of work, and love put into the project. And that's it in a nutshell, really, is how much do you care about the situation to put the effort into it? Are you driven by your players? Are you driven by your own inner self? But it's really how much do you want to dive in?
Yep. And how much will make it fun.
And how much will make it fun.
For the players and for you as the GM.
Because your players their eyes will gloss over in their head if you're going on about the environment around it and whatnot.
Start going into the minutia.
Info dumping.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you have any comments, leave them.
Have you developed your own world or your own region? How much do you like doing map making or whatnot? Leave a comment and hit the like button.
Yeah, hit the like button. Go to Twitter and post out what your world is like, and we'll take a look at it.
Oh yeah, share your maps on Twitter. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from you?
No.
All right. How about you?
I think I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good.
All right. Have a great one. Thanks for tuning in to Roll the Dice and All Things Gaming. Have a great day.